Hi, I'm Andy Duncan, and I'm still wearing my Negro Leagues Baseball Museum t-shirt because this is the same sitting. I'm here to present the uh, part two of my little series on first sentences and last sentences. The first story here is by Kurt Hunt. The title is An Indefinite Number of Birds. And here's the first sentence. Stanley began watching birds on the day he panicked and asked J.D. how much he really loved him. And J.D. responded, "Oh, for fuck's sake, Stanley." Here again, we have one of those openings that made me laugh aloud. Moreover, it economically introduces us to two characters and to their relationship. And it dramatizes a moment in a relationship that everyone who has ever been in love will recognize all too well and empathize with all too keenly. That terrible moment when you need reassurance to the extent that you ask a stupid quantitative question like this, even as you know it's a stupid question. You can't help vocalizing it anyway. I also find myself wondering how many times since they met has JD said these exact words. Oh, for fuck's sake, Stanley. Note too that while many writers might add a comma after O, the author leaves it off here because JD's response comes in something like a single breath without pause. Try reading the sentence with and without that comma to see the difference. One could make a case even for omitting the comma before Stanley, but I like the hint that JD is perhaps regretting his initial response already and faltering a bit at the end. Last sentence. I have no idea, he said. Enough. At the beginning of the story, a question is asked. At the end of the story, that question is answered. What could be more satisfying than that? Even if it's not quite the adolescent gush that Stanley may have hoped for at the outset. I will add only that the word enough is a winning last word for a piece of flash fiction. Enough! Now to Amy Peakey's Advanced Word Problems in Portal Math. First sentence. Problem 1. It is 7 p.m. on a snowy January evening, and Penny is a 13-year-old who likes fruity lip balms, wears leggings, and notices everything, like how she's expected to wash the dishes, but her older brother is excused to finish his homework. By now, you know me well enough to know that I consider an initial heading to be part of the first sentence that follows, and we can talk more about that over drinks if you like. What I would rather talk about here is how much mileage fiction gets out of mimicking a nonfiction format. I've talked already about the time-honored epistolary form, the story structured as a letter or a series of letters. A format so popular it may indeed be outliving the actual act of writing letters. Letter writing, like drawbridge scaling, soon may be an activity we encounter only in fiction. Here we have the format of a classroom exercise, a format instantly familiar to millions of people. And as relatively few of those people loved taking tests and loved doing homework, a story that interrogates the whole activity is instantly a story that has a lot of readers rooting for it. We are on the side of this story from the outset. Now, I myself happen to be a hopelessly amateur mathematics buff. I view math as I view stage illusion. I can't do those tricks myself, but I love them when they're done well, and I love reading about them. And I long have wondered why more fiction writers don't use the specific classroom format of the word problem. It seems ready-made for flash fiction in particular, and whether or not you love math, isn't every writing task in some sense a word problem? All this, and I have not said one word yet about Penny, who pops off the page as a complete character, and one we would follow anywhere, even into mathematics. She notices everything, which is all you can ask for in a protagonist. And I love that the last word of this sentence is homework, since the story format is that of homework. Last sentence. Don't forget to show your work. This is just about the perfect way to end a story that began as an assignment. But it also beautifully literalizes what happens at the end of every story, no matter what format it takes. Every story ends with a handoff to the reader. What happens next after the ending is always up to the reader, who now has, by implication, some work to do. I love that here the author has seized the opportunity to make this explicit. So keep that in mind as we move to the last story in my series, my mini anthology. It's by Avenia Triantafilou. It's titled This Village. And the first sentence. You don't know who we are, but we promise you we are harmless, and we made this village for you. When I first read this, I thought instantly of the first sentence of the late Carol M. Schwiller's brilliant novel, The Mount, which is this: we're not against you, we're for. The we in that case were the aliens who, from the point of view of most readers, had enslaved the human race. The title character is a human who is prized and ridden like a horse. I have no idea whether the author had M. Schwiller in mind, but I suspect the author certainly had in mind the vast subgenre of science fiction and fantasy that riffs on the ancient story of the Trojan horse, the gift that turns out to be, at best, double-edged. Because I am so well read in that genre, my first thought was, look out! I'm sure I'm not the only one. We begin this story with a flinch, an instinctive defensive move, like a baseball fan reacting to a line drive hit right at them. Which is exactly the position of the you in the story. The you who has good reason to feel beaten up, abused, perhaps terrorized, and is sorely in need of a timeout. Incidentally, this village is the most recent of the stories I selected. It was published just this year, 2022. In fact, through sheer happenstance, it was published on the day the anti-abortion decision of the U.S. Supreme Court was leaked. And many online readers said this story helped them navigate that day. Whatever day it was published, it would have struck many readers in just that personal way because, in part, the opening strikes such a universal personal nerve. We all need more harmlessness, don't we? And please note the craft here. The pronouns we and you are paired 3 times, but the order varies as it should, and a bonus we pops up in the middle. You, we, you, we, you. I don't begrudge our narrator or narrators getting an extra we. It's their story to tell, after all. And any charge of weism is offset by the sentence beginning and ending with you. Besides, we get a beautiful symmetry. If we view the second you as the middle of the sentence, then before it comes you, we, and after it comes the reverse, we, you. This does not just happen, any more than a dining table spontaneously sprouts legs. It's a sign of planning in the construction. Last sentence. Now it is time to build. The perfect ending for a story that is about construction and a story that embodies construction. And once again, a story that explicitly ends with a handoff to the reader. I also thought this worked well for an ending to my little series because, well, now it is time to build. Time to get to writing, to doing all those things that need doing, that make your life meaningful to yourself and to others. Because this is your village. And I don't just mean Clarion West. Thanks for listening.